Everyone, welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and what's new, what's going on. And today I have a special guest, Matti Sulanto from Sulantoblog. And if you're not familiar with him, he does have a channel here on YouTube, and he's a professional photographer and provides a lot of great content to help you become a better photographer. And he talks about gear, and he does reviews, and he does photo walks. I mean, he's pretty much across the board all around great guy, and has a lot of experience in photography. He's been doing this, gosh, I feel like almost since I was born, but a lot longer than I have. And I wanted to draw on his experience uh, to continue our conversation from last week on the fourth annual Micro Four Thirds online meetup with him specifically, because one, he was supposed to be there, but he couldn't get on because of a technical issue. But also, he has a very unique perspective now, being a former Lumix ambassador or visionary, whatever they called him. He had some title with Lumix, and has worked closely with them. So he has, I think, a little bit of more unique perspective on Micro Four Thirds. And now that he's moved on to adding some additional camera systems to his toolbox, so to speak, he can also share with his experience in that equipment as well. So we're going to focus mostly on Micro Four Thirds, but we will expand into other systems as well, because we're always curious, right? Full frame curious, quote unquote. So welcome everybody. I see Robin Wong is here, the happiest photographer on earth. Always good to have you in the chat. John Yutze, Lauren, Robert, it's great to see everybody. I'm so glad you guys can make it. So let me go ahead and bring Maddie in. He's standing by patiently for me here. And there he is.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so sorry we had some technical issues last time and I couldn't join in, but now I'm here and I'm listening.
Yeah, I know that was just so that was so unfortunate, because you're sorely missed in the online meetups. But hopefully next year you'll be good, and with your permission, maybe we'll have you on again before the year out. But in any case, we had a really great conversation, I think, last week on the Micro Four Thirds system, about the industry in general and what we would like to see going forward, and a lot of diverse opinions there as well. But I wanted to for you to share, what you think trends and changes in the industry are happening, specifically with Micro Four Thirds, but also maybe industry wide, the camera industry in general. And it may be different if you want to break it down between professionals and amateurs, and it doesn't have to be gear specific. But go ahead and tell me your thoughts. What trends and changes do you see?
Well, of course, Micro Four Thirds has been pretty quiet for some time for a couple of reasons. I think it's the chip shortage, that's one reason, and the whole thing that's happened with Olympus and all that. And it would be nice to see some hot new gear also there, because I think no matter what we all say, that it's not the gear, it's the photographs, it's the pictures that count, but I still think that consumers, they want to see new gear, and that makes any system more like credible. And compared to full frame, for example, there are 3 manufacturers putting out new gear pretty actively. So and even though they are different systems, but still it makes it, if I'm talking about full frame as some sort of another system, it makes it more maybe credible and appealing, because there is new gear coming out all the time. And if another system seems to be very like static or nothing is happening, maybe the regular consumer don't see it as appealing. So those are my main thoughts
Yeah.
at the moment.
Well, way before I was ever into photography, it's my understanding that on the professional side, we would wait 4 or 5 years for a new camera and certain camera systems, and I'm talking about film era. They might go like 8 or 9 years with
Hmm.
the same model still in production, and then they might overlap a new model to replace it. But things went on a long time, and I think
Yep.
with the introduction of digital, that's all changed to like what you said. At the consumer level, um, you're right. I mean, people want to see new cameras every year, and I'm not sure what drove that consumption mentality of getting a new camera every year, but it's something Sony definitely, took advantage of, right? Because it seemed like every 6 months there was a new camera coming out from Sony.
Hey,
Um,
can I say something?
yes.
Um, like a month ago or so, I just for the fun of it, I counted all new camera models from the
Hmm.
last 10 or so years from Canon, Nikon, Sony, and pretty much every major manufacturer. And
Hmm.
Canon brought out the most cameras. It was not Sony, it was Canon who
Mm.
introduced more cameras than anyone else. So I think
Hmm.
uh, when people often say that Sony brings out new model every 6 months, but I don't think it's true. It's just somehow looks like that. I'm
Yeah.
not defending Sony in any way. I'm just saying.
Right. Right. No, I mean, I appreciate that because that's my perception as a consumer, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure many, as you stated. And like I was saying, I don't know what caused this consumer consumption to have a new camera every year or see a new camera every year. Sort of like the iPhones. Every year you're getting a new one. Samsung, every new, there's this consumption that the camera companies have seen. People are willing to buy a new camera every year, it seems like. But what do
I
you think about on the I'm sorry, I was going to ask you what about that, and what do you think about on the professional side? Are you seeing that same trend?
Well, I think the one camera each year started when the digital arrived because in the early, let's say before 2010, the first 10 years of digital photography, pretty much from 2000 to 2010, then the cameras, they were actually quite a bit better every time, every year. And if it made kind of sense to
Mm.
buy a new camera every year. But I don't think it's so much true anymore. You can use, I don't know, 7, 8 year old camera, and the new cameras are not that much better anymore. They are more refined. Maybe autofocus is better and everything, but
Mhm.
the image quality itself, it's not that much better anymore. But if you take a camera from say 2001 and compare it to a camera from 2005, for example, there's a big difference in the image quality. And also 2005 was the first year when we had the first like reasonably priced full frame camera and so on.
Mm.
So there was a lot going on between 2000 and 2010. But
Right.
and I think even if today we don't really need a new camera every year, but I think consumers still want to see some new stuff coming out because it's been like that pretty much all the time since we started digital photography. So people
Right.
kind of expect that, like you said.
Yeah. That's interesting. So really you feel like it was the technology that sort of drove the producing a new camera every year, which may have driven consumer behavior. I don't know what came first, chicken or the egg. Uh, but
But
that's a good point.
talking about in the film era, I have this really nice Nikon F3 here, and
Wow.
camera was in production for 21 years. So imagine that. Imagine if any of the new cameras could do that. I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Well, uh, wasn't it the Nikon F5 that they just stopped producing, or is it the F6? They just stopped. That's been in production forever too.
Yeah,
Or
the latest film camera. I think it was
yeah,
F6 or something. Yeah, that
right.
was also in production for quite a long time.
Yeah, and I think the only company really seriously making a film camera anymore is Leica. Uh,
I think so. Yeah,
yeah, I think so. But anyway, we're not going to talk about film today.
not much.
As much as all of us love film, uh, but I think it speaks to um, there's definitely the trend. Do you see that same trend in professional photography? Are professional photographers buying new gear every year or every 2 years, or are they waiting till the machine, the camera just wears out and buy another one?
Yeah, I think the professionals that I know, they definitely don't buy new cameras or new gear every year. And in general, I think, yeah, there are professional photographers who are interested in cameras, of course, and some of them buy lenses just for fun too. But I think most professionals have a specific reason to buy maybe a new lens. They need it for a job or
Mhm.
something. And when it comes to cameras, I think it's 3, 4 years or so, depending on how much you shoot. And then when the camera really starts to wear out, or before it starts to wear out or break, then you buy a new camera and then you just shoot with that camera for another maybe 3 to 5 years and then
Right.
consider a new one after that. I think but professional photographers or professional photography is so different from amateur photography because if you're a professional, you need certain type of gear and you need probably more versatile gear than an amateur because amateur doesn't really need anything. An amateur just wants something, and there's a difference there. Professional needs it for a certain job, but amateur just wants something because he wants to make certain types of such pictures. But still, I mean, there's a difference there. And
Yeah.
amateur also doesn't amateur doesn't have any need to financially somehow, or the budget is how much he or she can afford. But professional probably thinks also of the how is it called, the in investment return, how do you say, how
R
much,
ROI, return on
yeah,
investment. Yeah.
yeah, how much money the gear brings in. But amateurs don't have to think about anything like that. They can just buy anything they can afford.
Yeah. It's basically, I guess we would people would spend their disposable income on their hobbies and whatever they like. Um, and people that are into gear, they liked all the new bells and whistles, right?
Yes,
So the camera companies, I think, have a really hard job in that sense, right? They have to come up with new features and new bells and whistles uh, to attract the consumer, but also, still make it attractive to professionals in terms of, the other capabilities, the durability and service and all of that. Uh, so I think with the idea of, the camera industry, like you said, there's three major companies still cranking out mostly full frame. Um, and you saw Fuji's strategy, their APS-C and then medium format, if you want to call it that. So I feel like Olympus and Panasonic, they started really, I think, the mirrorless industry, right? Um,
yes.
I thought I heard somewhere Olympus might have been the first mirrorless camera, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, they
That
started really the industry, and they've had this huge, lens, a lot of assets, right? That photographers have access to in lenses and accessories and things like that. And and they were releasing cameras on a regular basis. But uh, do you think there's any advantage to not releasing a camera every year, or is that going to be a problem going forward, or is that or is there an advantage? Maybe they come out with a really good camera, but it takes 2 or 3 years to come out. Or do you think just cranking out a camera every year is going to drive the Micro Four Thirds market?
mm, okay, that's a difficult question.
Yeah, that's hard, right?
I,
I don't want to put
um,
you on the spot, but
well, I'm not a marketing expert, but I just think that I think that you know consumers in general, they just want to see the whatever system it is, they want to see the system kind of being alive and something is happening all the time. And maybe it doesn't make sense to bring out new cameras just for the sake of a new camera.
Mhm.
And of course, today it's very difficult to come up with some totally new features
Yeah,
because cameras are already so loaded these days. But you have to admit that, for example, on Micro Four Thirds, there's been the same sensor has been there forever now, and I think we all would like to see a new camera with a new sensor, bit
yeah,
maybe a bit more pixels, maybe a bit more this and that, and yeah, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, I can take great pictures even on this GF6,
yeah,
but still, I wouldn't mind if they came up
yeah.
with a new camera
And
with a new sensor. Yeah.
that's definitely something. um I think where Micro Four Thirds has been a little bit behind, because
Hmm.
every camera company, they reuse sensors for years and years. Sony has the same sensor in their like A
Yeah.
series forever, right? But nobody complains because their flagship model has the new sensor,
Yeah.
right? When Micro Four Thirds, it's like it's the same 20 megapixel sensor they've been using for 5 years or longer. I don't know. Even their flagship model, right?
Yes, it's been at least 5, probably even more years.
Yeah.
The
And
same
and
sensor.
And I think a good thing for them to do might be, yeah, go ahead and use the same sensor in every model, but your flagship model better have a better sensor,
Mhm.
uh, so that, people can upgrade to, or, everybody has their Halo camera. I think it was the Pen F that came out with the first 20 megapixel sensor.
The first one in Micro Four Thirds was the Lumix GX8, was it, or something? That
Okay,
was the
and
first.
GX8.
I think it was GX. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm
Yeah,
wrong,
I think
but
the 7 was definitely a 16, so 8 could have been the 20, but
yeah, but
like I
it
said, it
was
was on the
yeah,
Olympus side, it was the Pen F, right?
yes, I think
And that
so.
was
Yeah,
their Halo camera. I mean, it was all metal build, it was inexpensive. And I thought that was a good move, even though not a lot of people bought that camera at the time. I thought it was a very good move because you need that Halo camera. It's kind of like Honda winning the F1, or
mm.
Honda doesn't sell, sports cars, but they have a car in the F1, I think. Maybe not anymore, but at some time.
They
And they
used to
did
at
that.
least. Mm.
Yeah, they specifically have that Halo car to bring that technology down to their lower end models, right? That they sell to the consumer. And that's what I feel like Micro Four Thirds needs to do, is they need to have a Halo camera with the newest, sensor and other technology that can come out every year or every 2 years, year and a half. And then their lower end models, yeah, that can be your bread and butter. But there needs to be a Halo camera that consumers can see on a regular basis. I don't know. What do you think? Am I way off, or would you?
Yeah, I agree. I
Mhm.
totally agree.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we're on the same page.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm glad, this one-on-one format's a little better because I get to ask more questions. Uh, but that said, uh, we've talked a little bit about, how Micro Four Thirds might be able to take advantage of this trend, which has been ongoing for a long time, of releasing cameras on a regular basis. But Olympus had the problem with moving their factory over to Taiwan or Vietnam somewhere. Yeah, I think they moved it to Vietnam. So they had a window where they didn't create a lot of new gear. So they were using that as an excuse anyway.
yep,
And Panasonic, though, I didn't really see much from them either during that same period. Um, but I think that would be the best in our opinion. I think that would be the best way. And leave a comment also, the viewers today. Leave a comment if you think that makes sense. Because I guarantee they're watching this, right? Uh, Panasonic and OMS. They better be. They should be if they're smart.
definitely,
Not,
yeah.
not not just to us, but also to you guys, the viewers, right? But we've talked about in a lot of our videos and many of our colleagues here on YouTube, we've talked about a lot of the advantages of Micro Four Thirds, the size and weight factor. But what kind of advantages do you see in Micro Four Thirds because eventually the size and weight factor is going to go away, right? Um, Maybe not with the lenses, but we're already seeing that to some extent. With the GX9 and the GH5, they were both pretty large cameras, same size as like the Panasonic S5. But there's still some advantages in Micro Four Thirds. But I think, what do you think some advantages are for Micro Four Thirds still?
Um, First of all, I think that the size is more like a design and marketing decision than anything else. I think you can make a really small full frame camera too, but no one just wants to do it, and the lenses too. But of course, when you really start to shrink things or try to make as small as possible, then of course you can, because the sensor is smaller, you can make a smaller sensor camera a little bit smaller in the end. But I think you can make quite a small full frame camera too if you want to. But Micro Four Thirds has been right from the start. They've been wanting to make small and compact cameras, and I think that's a good decision. And
Mhm.
that's still one of the upsides. And I think I believe what OMS is trying to do is to, with their new camera whenever it comes out, I think they want to go to the adventure travel market or segment, and I think it's a wise decision. They already have a really good reputation with their weather sealing and excellent compact zoom lenses and all that. So I think, in my opinion, the upsides are there to make a relatively compact weather sealed system for people who want to, you know, hike or travel or do that kind of stuff, where a bigger system might be really unpractical. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, again, size and weight is still the main advantage. Um, I mean, there's other minor advantages I think that that you can live without maybe, right?
Mm,
Sometimes, because the biggest thing I hear is like on the video side about how you have a much deeper depth of field.
mm,
Even on the photo side, right? When you're doing landscapes, you have a deeper depth of field with more light, so you can use lower ISOs. But these are these are minor advantages, I think, in a lot of cases, um, because ultimately, full frame sensors, you can shoot at higher ISOs and kind of get the same. same image quality. But another big trend or thing I think Micro Four Thirds can take advantage of is definitely on the software side in the camera.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm very familiar with a lot of the bells and whistles that we have in the Olympus system, but not quite as much on the Panasonic side. Uh, have and this was one of the things people were asking me about after the last stream was, what are your thoughts about, what Panasonic is doing and what direction they're going, and how do you feel about the future of the Panasonic Micro Four Thirds?
Okay. First, before I even start on this one,
Mhm.
I'd like to say that I have no inside information whatsoever.
Right,
But this is what I think, and this is only my speculation. But
right.
I think that Panasonic is moving more and more towards video oriented cameras. And I think they are going to more or less get rid of all the consumer consumer photography cameras,
Mm.
or yeah, that's what I think. I think they are moving, and we can see that already. We have
Mhm.
seen it already, and I think that's what they're going to do. And
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see many Panasonic low end or consumer grade photography oriented cameras. I think their future products will concentrate more and more on the video side of things. But of course, you can take photographs on those cameras too. Something like the new GH6, which is supposed to come out soon, I think. But
Mhm.
but these are only my thoughts, and things can
Well,
be something else than that too.
yeah. I mean, like we're just one man, one opinion, right? So,
Yes.
but I think Panasonic has been testing the waters for this idea that your thoughts here, because they came out with those box cameras that are just
Yeah.
video centric. I think they were testing the waters to see what the market would be like for such a product, right? Because it's a high end video orientated Micro Four Thirds camera,
Yep.
um, and it has holes in it and stuff for to easily rig, and um, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's the direction they go, and we're not going to see. We might see a GH6, GH. I mean, we're going to see a GH6, but
Yeah.
GH7 and forward, they'll probably keep those. I hope they do, but if they do get rid of the consumer level cameras, I think the cameras like the LX100s are going to be sorely missed. That's
Yes.
you know, um, for the hipster crowd anyway. For those of us like to do street photography and things, because I think that was a direct competition to the Fuji X100.
Yeah.
Um, and the like you said, the G9. How long has it been since we've seen that camera come out? It's been 2-3 years, I think.
Oh,
Uh,
that came out, was it 2019,
yeah,
18? Don't remember
yeah. I
exactly.
think it may have been announced late 2018 and was for sale early 2019. But anyway, it's 2022, and
Yep.
not one rumor about a GH9 version 2, right?
G9.
Or G9. I'm sorry, G9 version 2.
Yeah,
Um,
not a rumor. And I'm afraid it's never going to happen. I think the
mhm,
GH6 will be the new flagship model, and there's not going to be any like
mm,
photo oriented version of that camera. If you think that G9 was like a photo oriented version of the GH5 kind of, but
yeah,
I don't think there's going to be another G9. I hope I'm wrong, but I
right,
think that's how it's going to be.
right. And unlike OM systems, Panasonic, they have their same corporate measure they've been using for years, right? Um, Whatever that was, but OM Systems definitely took a, focus their marketing on wildlife and sports action, astro, macro. But you haven't heard any like change or shift or focus and direction for Panasonic. They're very quiet on that sense, and that's never a good thing in my opinion. Um,
Yes,
so hopefully the GH6 will bring some excitement to that should be their halo camera, and then still make some consumer cameras that people want to get that has some of the features trickle down. But I don't know if from a marketing standpoint, if that makes any sense. From a business standpoint, I should say that may not make sense anymore in this market. Uh, but okay,
maybe.
let's move on. You know, what would you like to see next for Micro Four Thirds? And then maybe expand to other camera systems. But what would you like to see next?
Oh, okay. I'd like to first. I'd like OMS to catch up with their video features. I know probably most watching this live stream don't care about video, but I think Olympus was lagging so much in the video features that I'd like OMS to also do something about that and make their video features somehow at least up to the competition, if not above, but at least up to the competition and comparable. And I don't know what else. I wish we could see that new sensor, a little bit more pixels probably, and so that it would be closer to the best APS-C sensors in performance. And I really don't know. I think new cameras are so full of features already. I don't know really what I would like to see more. Even I can't use all the features on my cameras. And sometimes I wish there were less features. That would be better for me.
Well, I mean, a lot of features are software driven, right? Like the autofocus system, tracking. Is there anything in camera software wise that you might want to see cameras do a better job with?
I don't know. There's been a lot of talk, and many people seem to want that that fake bokeh thing that phones can do. But now that I've been thinking about it, I'm not sure if it's as easy to do on a real camera because, on a phone camera, the starting point is everything is sharp because there's so much depth of field. So it's easy to make the background whatever from that. But if the background is already a little bit soft, of course, you can make it a little bit softer still and do that. I don't know, but I'm not sure if that's, in my opinion, I don't think that it's so important after all. If you really want that super soft background, just buy another system. And if you really want to do that all the time, then you just buy another system. I think it's a better solution, but
depth of field is kind of a one-trick pony, right? You sprinkle your portfolio with some of that, but you can't every shot like that, right? As a professional.
Yes, it sometimes it looks really super nice. I just had a studio session, and I was using the Canon R5 and their 85 f1.2 lens, and I got some really super nice looking pictures that I shot at f1.2, but that was just those few shots, and most of the time I like more depth of field. And when I buy lenses, for example, I usually buy those f2.8 primes or something because they are compact and they offer me enough shallow depth of field if I sometimes need that. And I don't think I would buy that Canon lens because it's super expensive too. But some of those portraits that I shot, they look really, really pretty because of that f1.2.
Yeah, yeah. What's always impressed me, the only time I really care about the depth of field, the bokeh in the background is like, um, and I've never shot myself any images like this, but I've seen images, where, you're doing full length portrait from, head to toe, and the background is just blown out.
Yeah.
And that's maybe that was Photoshop, because I know I could do that in Photoshop pretty easily, but to get an authentic look of depth of field, an organic depth of field, that's always really something that I thought was very attractive.
Yeah, that looks really nice. And especially if you want to combine wide angle of view with really shallow depth of field, that really looks nice sometimes, especially if you do, I don't know, just full body portraits or something. If you're a wedding photographer or something like that, then it might be useful and your client might like those pictures.
Right.
But
Right.
then
Yeah,
again,
group
that's
shots and
but that's a professional job, and you do that because your clients want that or like that.
right. Wow. Just a quick update. The G9 was released December 2017.
2017.
Yeah, so it's easily 4 years old now. Wow. But okay. Yeah, I would like to see those same things, definitely more features, more computational type stuff like you were suggesting, the bokeh built in. And I'm sure there's other things. I just saw a video where they took the original iPhone 1 and compared it against the iPhone 13 for the image quality. And what was interesting was, the launch, when Steve Jobs came out and talked about the iPhone 1 and announced it, he said, it's a phone, it's an internet communicator, it's a iPod, but he didn't say it's a camera, which was interesting. But what they did is they figured out, they used Topaz in this case uh, to post-process the iPhone 1 images. And when you're looking at them at a normal full screen viewing, it was very hard to tell the difference between that and the iPhone 13. And all they did was post-process the iPhone 5 or iPhone 1 image through Topaz. They used the gigapixel and the sharpening and the denoising. They went through this whole process. And then when you put the two images side by side, it's like, wow. And it's only when you start to pixel peep, you start to see the pixelation and things.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really interesting how much post-processing software has improved. That's really helping Micro Four Thirds a lot. That's another big trend. But
Yeah,
also,
it is.
in camera, those are things that, legitimate cameras really don't have a lot of, right? They don't have a lot of that post-processing ability to improve the image quality, like we see in camera phones, right? Smartphones. And all that's really nice, but I think ultimately photography really is still about the image, right? Capturing the image, and for most amateurs, it's about capturing the moment.
Yes.
And you don't need a new camera to do that, right? I think there's so many great used cameras on the market that people are wasting their money on new cameras. I know you can get an EM10 Mark II for like $200, throw a lens on it, $300. And yeah, the camera's almost 7 years old, but it's extremely capable. And the
Yes.
image quality is on par. I saw a guy do a video on comparing the original Canon 5D against the Canon R5 on high ISO capability, and he was shocked. There hadn't been that much improvement, you know. That's a whole other video, but what what kind of things would you recommend people look for? Because there's so many used cameras and there's a lot of junk out there. Okay. So I was looking, maybe you could tell us some features to look for, certain things to check for if you're looking for a used digital camera, um, maybe specific models that you like that have come from the past. My favorite obviously is an Olympus EM10 Mark II, but you have a much longer history than I do, going way beyond me. So I wanted you to share your thoughts with us on the used cameras. And it's funny, Jimmy Chang just came out with a video on used cameras, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on maybe things to look for in a used camera and maybe some specific models you can recommend.
I don't know how many specific models I can recommend, but I can certainly tell you, and I agree with you, Rob, that you can have some really good value if you buy a used camera. Some of the older cameras are really capable, and if you are willing to go for a mirror camera like a DSLR, you can get those old. You mentioned the original Canon 5D. You can even get those for just maybe 300 or so,
Wow.
and it's a 350 whatever, but very very cheap. And you can also get some of those a little bit older lenses for really good price, and some other little bit older DSLRs can be had for a very little money, and they offer, because they were more mature products even back in 2010 or so. And if you buy, Nikon had many APS-C cameras like the D7000, 7100 or whatever. Those are also great cameras if you're willing to shoot on a mirror camera. And of course, if we move to mirrorless, one of my favorites is the Lumix GX80, which I like a lot. I think it's a much nicer camera than I don't have the GX9 here right now, but I think it's much nicer camera. It's smaller, and somehow the controls are nicer, in my opinion. And I don't know exactly what kind of prices you can expect these days, but and it of course depends on where you live and so on. But some of those can be really nice too. And I was just the other day I was looking at the Fuji X-E1. It was the first like rangefinder style Fuji camera, and I saw a camera body here in Finland for 140 euros, and I suppose you can get it for about the same dollars in the States, and it's not a lot of money for that camera. It makes super nice JPEGs, and the lens selection is really good, and it's a mirrorless camera. The autofocus is not quite as refined as in some of the latest cameras, mirrorless cameras, but still I think for that money it would also be a really nice camera. There are so many models. I guess the specific features really depend on your style and whatever, but I could even shoot with this. I already showed you this GF6.
Yeah.
And I bet if you find one used, it's not very expensive.
And I think it's beautiful. That's a beautiful camera. I love that silver top. Just it's funny, when I was back in 2012, when I was first starting to shop cameras myself, I was looking at the GX1. I think that was a 12 or 16 megapixel micro four thirds. And then I was looking at the
Yeah.
Sony NEX, and yeah, those were the two. I wanted to go mirrorless for some reason, even though I knew nothing about photography. And ironically, I went with the Sony, but I switched to a DSLR, the Nikon D7100,
Mm, yeah.
because I just preferred I preferred an optical viewfinder for some unknown reason. But, the Sony just felt like a piece of technology. It didn't feel like a camera.
But
And
I think that Sony cameras still today they feel a little bit like that, and
yeah,
not like cameras like Nikon or Canon or maybe even Olympus, because those manufacturers have or OMS these days. Sorry about that,
no,
but those manufacturers have a long history of making cameras. I mean, Sony makes really and nice cameras, and they have certainly. I think we can thank Sony our for somehow giving Canon and Nikon something to think about. And I think Canon and Nikon probably wouldn't be in mirrorless yet if there wasn't
mm,
Sony, I think.
yeah, that's possible. Um, another, yeah, I have a GX85 because you mentioned a GX80, which I think is overseas for me. Overseas for you would be the GX85, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I just feel like it's like it's so well made. It's solid, all metal, and very compact. I mean, I know Panasonic had like a GM1, which was even smaller, but it didn't have IBIS, right?
Yes.
Of course, a lot of the lenses had IBIS, so you're kind of, six of one, half the other. Uh, but yeah, that's a fantastic camera, I think. And even brand new during Christmas, I saw that camera with two lenses, for like $499. You got the two kit lenses. And the kind of images you can produce with even an entry level camera like that uh, can rival, any camera out there in terms of
Yes.
just sheer image quality and what you're going to look at online. Even in print, you can print 16 megapixels, up to an A9 size, or 20 by 16, something like that, with no
Yeah.
problem at all. Not many people print anymore. They should, but
And you
so
know what? It's always, I mean, in real life photography, you're only using one camera most of the time, right? You take
yeah,
a picture, you have whatever camera you have. And that's why sometimes it's a little bit pointless to kind of compare cameras, because you're going to use the camera that you have with you. And
yeah,
if I today, when I went out, if I shot a really nice picture, it makes no sense to kind of speculate what the picture would have been on another camera, because I didn't have another camera. And pretty much all the time, every time in real world situations, it's not possible to shoot the same picture with two cameras simultaneously, right? Because something is just like in street photography, it's impossible.
yeah.
So um, those those comparisons are for comparisons, but
Well,
um,
the sad thing about a lot of reviews and things that you see online, in my opinion, is, and there's only a handful of them, but a lot of the reviews I see online, these guys are not professional photographers.
yeah,
They're just drive-by type reviews. And and the industry is, online anyway, is driven by just the metrics. How many viewers or subscribers do you have? How many accounts do you have on Instagram? How many, likes?
yeah,
It's very driven that way. And these are the people getting the cameras for reviews. People like me, um, technically I'm a professional photographer, right? I don't really consider myself a professional photographer. I'm really, really more amateur. I really enjoy photography. Uh, as an amateur, and then I do a little bit of professional work, right? Which is kind of on the side, but my professional work is I lost track of what my point was here. Um,
It was something about reviews and comparisons.
yeah. So even if that's why I don't do camera reviews myself. I mean, I do comparisons time to time because sometimes people want to know, should I get a Mark II, Mark III? And I can say, well, Mark III has this, Mark II has that. But when you do a camera review, since you've been doing things so long and you're also a professional photographer, see, I consider you a professional photographer, not like me, right? Because you have a lot more experience with different kinds of gear and just years and years of experience from film all the way through the whole digital thing. So I much more respect your opinion on any kind of camera reviews you might do than I would say someone else that they just have a lot of subscribers, it they just go through the specs and they sometimes they don't even show images. I saw a review one time on an Olympus camera. The guy did the whole video with just drone shots of him carrying the camera around. He didn't show a single image. And then talked about how great the camera was. I mean, that's a
But
little extreme, but
my problem is that I really don't like reviews like full on reviews, because it's kind of boring to make reviews. Then I'd rather just have fun with a camera or lens and then tell based on that what I think about it. And that's why my reviews are not like let's say on DP review, where they really
right.
go through every feature. And but I don't like that. And I review a lot of lenses on my channel, but I'd like to get rid of that review style that I have, where where I'm right now, same place, and talk
Yeah.
about the lens. I'd like to do more like photo walk type of video with a lens, and then talk about the lens without too much pixel peeping and that, because there are so many websites and so many channels on YouTube who make those pixel peeping reviews for those who are interested.
Right. And that's I think I think that's what makes your reviews better, is because someone as a photographer, whether I'm amateur or pro, primarily amateur, but you can look at the pictures you're taking and how you're using the camera and a couple of things that you like about it. And that connects a lot better, I think, with people that are thinking about photography. Because like you said, anybody can look at a spec sheet, but it's different when you do a review. It's not a review. It's like, I'm going to take this camera out and let's take some pictures and see how it does. And you can say, oh, I really like how the camera handled this situation. Here's a picture I did, and this feature is really nice to have. And then this other thing, I wish they would include this or add this, but it's as a amateur photographer, they're looking at that and it's something they can connect with and say, yeah, that's the kind of picture I want to take. Or, yeah, you were able to do that with that camera and you showed me with this picture.
Yeah, I hope I can inspire people with my photo walks and my pictures.
Yeah. And we don't want, if a lot of our audience, I don't think, is worried about the specific specs all the time, right? They're more interested in, what can I do with this camera? How can this help me take better pictures? And what are the things, like I did a video on the ergonomics comparing the S5 versus the Olympus. And I found the ergonomics on the Olympus were much, much more suitable for me. I really preferred it over that. But I still use the S5 because it's for video work, because it's so much better for it took my video work up another level, what I could deliver to the client. But like I said, that's why I think I always encourage people, to check out you and the other, the other my other colleagues or peers. I'm not sure how to rip my friends on here on YouTube, because we're all real photographers, and when we do a gear review or we talk about cameras, uh, we have a different we can connect a little differently, right, with people on a more realistic level. And yeah, I love your photo walks. And
Likewise.
yeah, and I love that studio episode you had as well. And it really, you didn't talk about the gear at all. You just said, okay, I'm going to use this camera and this lens. Let's see what kind of pictures we get. And then the whole video was about the images you were taking, right? And
But
that's something people. Oh, go ahead.
oh yeah, I just want to say to everyone that those photo walks they are such a big challenge to me every time. It really takes a lot of energy for me to go out and make those photo walks, and it's so difficult for me to explain what I'm trying to do when I'm taking pictures. So I want all of you to know that it's a lot of pain for me to make those photo walks. So please do appreciate them.
Well, you make it look easy, Maddie. Like I said, I really enjoy your photo walks, and I really like the studio episode that you did. So I encourage everyone that, if you haven't watched the episode where he does his first studio shoot in a long time, definitely check that out. Uh, that really it was interesting to watch, a behind the scenes kind of thing.
There's going to be more studio shoots. I have
Great.
I filmed already another one, and I'm going to do more of those. It's just a little bit organizing every time because there are other people involved. But I'm going to do more of those because now I kind of got the taste of it and I started to enjoy it. The thing is that in the past I have made so many, like thousands and thousands of portraits, corporate portraits most of the time, or for magazines and other publications, that I kind of got a little bit fed of that. And it took me a few years to kind of recover. And now it seems that based on these two studio shoots, that studio sessions, that now I can enjoy it again. And I'll probably do more of those studio sessions also. And I hope you like them too.
Yeah, definitely. Because on one level, it's you would think it's not really focused to the amateur photographer, but I think there's a lot to learn in a studio that you can carry out into the field, because you're very conscious of the lighting and where the lighting's coming from and what it looks like, and you can sort of translate that. I think it helps people see light better, right?
Yeah,
And
and many people like to do portraits in their home
Mhm.
studio, and you can apply those same techniques, and you don't need a big studio like that. My place where I'm sitting right now, this is just too small. I can't do any.
Mhm.
I could do a portrait here, but I can't do a video here. So that's why I go to a studio to make those videos.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, studio, you can work in small spaces, right? But yeah, it's better to have a bigger space.
Yes, and if you do a video at the same time, then you need a little bit more space.
Yeah, definitely. I plan to do more. Well, anyway, I'll talk about that another time. Uh, but I've done a couple of flash videos recently, for Peter's 52 assignment challenge. And that's been a great inspiration. Um, Let me just ask you one more question, and then we'll go to the viewers and do an open Q&A.
All
So
right.
for you guys, can start typing your questions in now, and I'll try and keep track of them that you would have for Maddie. But let me just ask you one more quick question, because this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about before in terms of software. Um, what just a little insight into your workflow. What software do you use personally to process, your images?
All right. I've said it before. My workflow is very, very simple. I don't usually do much post-processing at all. I shoot raw because I can, and I appreciate the flexibility of raw. And a little bit of background. When I moved to digital back in 1999, the raw workflow back then was crap because we didn't have Lightroom, and back then I was using Nikon cameras, and there was only a very, very simple plugin for Photoshop that you could use to import your raw pictures, but that was really painful if you had a lot of pictures, like, I don't know, not like hundreds, but if you had like 30 or 40 pictures, you had to import them one by one, and it was really, really super difficult. But back then I shot JPEGs because of that. But then Lightroom came, and the whole workflow all of a sudden became so much easier. And I've been using Lightroom ever since, and I've tried some other applications on and off, but so far I'm happy with Lightroom. And one more thing before I go to my workflow, I know many people don't like the subscription model of the Adobe, and there are some other applications too that work the same way, but I still think it's a pretty good value for money. I get a Lightroom and Photoshop for about 10 units, whether it's euros or dollars a month, and I don't think it's a bad deal, but it's just my opinion, of course. And I know how Lightroom works, and so it's very easy for me to do whatever I want to do. And Lightroom has some features that many other raw applications don't have, like the coordinates, the map, the coordinates. You can see where you took your pictures if you have coordinates in your photographs, GPS coordinates, and then Lightroom has also a very good print feature and some other features that many other raw applications don't have. But anyway, my workflow is very simple. I import my pictures to Lightroom, and when I import, I apply certain keywords, and then I just do minimal post-processing. I have nothing against some little bit more heavy post-processing, but most of the time I feel that my pictures don't need that much post-processing, and I do whatever it takes, but most of the time it's very, very simple, basic color balance and tonality, and that's it. And I have Photoshop, but I don't use it that often. Most of the time I use Photoshop to make the cover pictures for my YouTube videos.
Right. Yeah, because it's a combination, like vector graphics type program and
Yeah.
a pixel editor, right?
Yeah.
That said, I do remember you are pretty much a purist type photographer. Whatever you get straight out of camera, you pretty much stick with, and then sometimes you edit.
Well, I have this. It's not really. I'm not like 100% purist, but I think photography has one specific, let's call a feature compared to any other way to make pictures, like painting or whatever, or composite big pictures made out of photographs, because a photograph can stop emotion in time, and it stays that way. And I think that's the unique feature of a photograph, and I want to embrace that in my pictures. When I take a picture on the street, that moment in time is frozen forever, basically. And no other way to make pictures, whether it's painting or something else, can do that. You can paint a moment in time, but you can't capture it the way you can with a photograph. If you paint it or draw it, the moment is gone by the time you are finished with your picture.
Yeah, yeah, don't overdo it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm stuck with Lightroom, Photoshop. I think what, in your opinion, what was it that, you wanted to look at other software but stuck with Lightroom, for example?
Okay, one thing is that I'm just too lazy to learn a new software, and I want to have my keywords. I want to have the map feature or the location feature. It's called a map on Lightroom, and I want to have that print feature too. And yeah, I guess those are the main things that make me stick with the Lightroom.
Okay, so it's not the cataloging feature, because to me, there's a lot of software out there, but they're lacking any kind of cataloging.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, the cataloging feature or archiving feature too. That is too very important, because I want my pictures to be in certain order, and those keywords are part of that too.
Yeah, and I think that's really something, if you're thinking about photography professionally, having a way to archive your images so you can relicense them later, years later, and being able to find those images. Really, Lightroom's really the only one that I know of that can do that. I think Capture One has some good data asset management ability, and that's a whole nother can of worms about data asset management. But that was definitely, Lightroom is definitely one of their strong points, is being able to curate your images a lot easier because of the
Yes,
cataloging features and things like that.
there are probably some raw developers that can do a little bit better job, maybe a little bit more sharpness or less noise or whatever, but I'm not interested in that. I get good enough results with Lightroom, and I have no problem there.
Right.
And those other features are much more important for me.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Let me pop up the first question here. So this is a question to both of us. You've seen our vlogs where we wear wool gloves. I've seen Maddie wear gloves, but couldn't tell which ones. Any tips for mild winter weather?
Well, the gloves that I sometimes wear in my videos are called Valeret brand. I think it's a Norwegian brand, and I got those gloves as a present, so to speak, and they are pretty good. But the model that I have is not good for any kind of really cold weather, even in about -2, 3 Celsius, my fingers are getting cold. But if you have mild, whatever you call mild winter weather, I would call something like down to about -5 Celsius mild. If it goes below that, then it starts to get cold. But that's me. I live here in very north. I have a video where I explain or share some tips for winter photography, but I would say that wear enough clothes, whatever, warm clothes, so that you are not getting cold, because once you get cold, then you can't concentrate on anything anymore. And if you have extra batteries, put them inside your coat somewhere close to your body so they keep warm, because batteries, as you all know, they die a lot faster in cold weather. but I don't know if it's just some mild winter weather. I don't think you need anything really that special.
Hmm.
But if it gets really cold, like minus 20 or 30 Celsius, then you're gonna need some special gear, clothes, and everything. And even I'm not really specialized in that, because if it's that cold, I'm gonna stay inside.
Yeah, I I just bought these like knit gloves from the dollar store. They're
Mm.
about this big, but then when you put them on, they stretch out.
Ah,
And I cut a little hole right about here so I can flip over the front, for my finger. And then the other thing I use is like these little USB chargers. It's a hand warmer, but you charge it by USB. So it's a hand warmer and it's a power bank at the same time. Um,
let me get the gloves that I use. Just
okay,
to, I'll be back in 30 seconds.
sure. And while he's gone, I also have some. I did buy a pair of like $20 low pro gloves that have the finger things, but um, they're they're fine if it's not too cold and there's a little bit of wind. But when it gets too cold, below freezing, sometimes I double up my gloves, and I have two fingers coming over.
I mean,
Oh,
these
okay.
gloves, they have nice features. They even have a magnet so you can fold
Yeah, yeah,
the but yeah, they are really nice. But this model that I have is not good for really cold weather. I'd say maximum or minimum -5 Celsius, and then after that you're gonna need something more substantial. But this is what I mostly use during my
yeah.
photo walks.
Okay. Here's another question, a little more personal. It says, "Can you tell your most memorized camera, past and current line? I guess your most memorable camera, and the camera which your favorite camera gave you some personal emotions."
All right. I guess my first, when I started out as a professional photographer back in 1983, that's a long time ago, my camera back then was the Nikon FE2. And I guess that's kind of memorable
Mm.
because it was my first real professional camera. And then another memorable camera would be the Mamiya RZ
Six,
Pro
seven?
2, yeah, 6x7, because that was my workhorse camera all through the 90s, and I shot thousands and thousands of rolls of 6x7 on that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah,
That
because back then, I mean, you had to have. Today, I mean, even if you're a professional, you don't really need many formats to be able to shoot whatever assignments you get. But back then, you had to have 35 millimeter, and then you had to have medium format. And
mm,
I also had a large format 4x5, but
yeah.
35 and medium format were pretty much a must, because the image quality on 35 millimeter film, it was just not good enough for some assignments, and it didn't have to be any kind of a special assignment, just a cover photo for a magazine, for example. I mean, you could do it on a 35, but it would look so much better if you shot it on medium format. And
Right.
sometimes if you shot like billboards or stuff like that, then 35 was not good enough simply. But today, even the smallest format we have, Micro Four Thirds, is good enough for many things. Maybe not for everything, but many things. So you don't necessarily need anything else. But back to those back to those cameras, and then I think Canon 5D well also won like a benchmark camera, because it was the first affordable full frame camera, And then, of course, some mirrorless cameras. I used to own the very first Olympus OM AM Mark 1.
Yeah. Okay.
It's those model names are so
Cryptic.
cryptic. But anyway, the first AM1, whatever, and that was a remarkable camera too. And what else? I don't know. Those cameras come to mind.
Okay. So that's interesting. You didn't pick anything more modern. So that kind of implies that modern cameras are more tools for you now, right? Than
Well, okay, one modern camera or two, Ricoh GR.
Okay.
This is the GR3X, and this is the regular GR3,
Right.
and these cameras are nice. And I've used also some of the previous models, and they all have been really, really super nice. And I really, really like these cameras a lot.
Okay.
And yeah, let's add those two.
All right, that's good because that actually answers another question later on. But let's go to one actually from Robin Wong here.
Yeah, I saw Robin's question, so yeah.
Yeah, do you miss the yellow cabs? You can
Yellow
do design with
cars.
just yellow cars.
Yes, I do. Robin. I miss you, and I miss Kuala Lumpur, where I started the Yellow Cars project, and I also miss yellow cars because over here in Helsinki, yellow cars are not that common. I saw one today when I was out walking, taking a photo walk, but you don't see too many of those over here. But yes, I do miss them, and I hope I can someday still get back to KL and shoot with you, Robin, some yellow cars and many other things too.
Well, Maddie, what you need to do is buy a yellow car for yourself and start a trend.
Maybe I'll just do that someday.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, this actually goes back to the Ricoh. It's a little more specific. Do you prefer one, or I'll let you read it. Which one do you prefer, and how do you feel about the camera overall?
Well, I pretty much said it already. I think Ricoh has done a really good job with these GR cameras, and one of the reasons is that these are pretty much compromised cameras. I mean, they are designed for very small group of photographers, and they are not for everyone. Firstly, because the lens is fixed, and some of the usability is compromised because the camera is so tiny. But then again, that's the whole point, because it's such a tiny camera with such a big image quality. On both cameras, the lens is amazingly sharp, and all in all, the image quality never disappoints. And I just love these little cameras, and every time I go out, I have either both of these cameras in my pocket or just the other one. Lately, I've been using the X a little bit more because it's a little bit newer. I just got it some time ago, but I love these little cameras. They're the best.
Okay, wow. Now this one here, I think we'll preempt this by saying we don't know anything more than anyone else. I know they're having an announcement at the end of this month, but I didn't know if you could add anything more to that.
No, I don't know anything. I have no behind the scenes information whatsoever. But I hope we have seen some of the specifications already, and I hope that those specifications are true. And I hope it's going to be a good camera, because it's going to be very, very important for Panasonic, that camera.
Yeah, I hope so too. So if you want to see some rumors about what the specs are, 43rumors.com has, is probably the only source really on it. that I'm aware of. And then be sure to read the comments. So you'll see like specs leaked, like an article on the specs leaked for the GH6, but also read the comments. Sometimes a user will put in some behind the scenes type thing, like he has a friend at Panasonic. I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but just for fun. But until they actually announce it, nobody really knows.
Can I say one more thing? There's
Mhm.
a comment that says, say hello to Alexi. Loved those photo walk videos. Well, Alexi is in India right now because he spends his winters there. He has a family there, and but he's going to be back a little bit later in the spring, and then we will make more photo walk videos with him for sure. But right now, he's in India enjoying the tropical weather.
Okay. Who's Alexi?
It's Alex is my friend here in Finland. He's
Okay.
another photographer, and we have made a few photo walks together.
Oh, that guy.
And yeah,
Okay.
that guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but he has Indian family members, and he
Mhm.
spends his winters in
Mm.
India usually, and
Okay.
he's there right now.
All right. Now, how important is weather sealing for your personal camera, or don't you care? Or do you care?
Well, it is somewhat important, but it's not a deal breaker. Like, for example, these Ricoh cameras, these are not weather sealed, but I still use them all the time. But for example, today, when I was taking a photo walk, it was snowing quite heavily, and I was happy to have a weather sealed camera and lens with me. But it's not like a deal breaker for me. But of course, I appreciate it. The climate where I live is pretty unstable. It can rain and snow and whatever
Mhm.
any day, winter or summer. So, but it's nothing really super important. But I appreciate it.
Okay. And then this was just a quick question about this hand warmer. It's called Go Warmer. I bought it at Walmart like 2 years ago. I don't even know if they have it anymore. It was like 20 bucks. Anyway, if you shop Amazon or any online outlet, I'm sure you'll be able to find one. Um,
It's one of those. Maybe they had a batch of power banks where something went wrong in the manufacturing. They heat up when you turned it on, and they decided to market it as a hand warmer.
yeah, yeah. This is defective. No, not. It's a new product. Because power bank should not get hot. If you have a power bank and it's getting hot, don't use it as a hand warmer. But anyway, here's another question. Any personal photo projects in the works?
Ah, yes, there are something, but I can't reveal it here. But
Okay.
yes, of course, there is something going on all the time. But if you really get into photo projects, they're going to take a lot of time. And right now, it seems that I'm so occupied with my YouTube channel and a few other things that I don't have so much time to do any real serious projects. But yes, there is something going on.
Okay. And when you say time, like how long is a typical project for you? Is it like weeks, months, years?
Well, it depends on the project, but this yellow car project, for example, I started it back in 2017.
Wow. And still not done.
Not done.
Okay. No, I mean, I know there's these very long form projects that a lot of photographers do.
I
Sometimes,
think, yeah, I think those are the best,
mhm,
but they take a lot of commitment
yeah, a lot of
and
research.
Yes, but those usually turn out the best because it yeah, because I guess if you do something like that, you want to do it properly.
Right.
But of course, if you want to start a photo project, start with something simple. Maybe just a simple assignment,
Hmm.
self-assign you yourself, and to do a little. I don't know. I had a video once where I just walked around the block, and my assignment was to create certain amount of pictures during my walk around the block. I had 1 hour to do it, and start with something like that, and go from there. I'm
Okay.
so used to having all kinds of assignments because I have done most of my photography has been assignments.
Yeah. So you're really uh and I mean, photography really has multiple person or multiple, what's the word I'm looking for? There's different businesses in photography, right? There's sort of the online photography, like Instagram, Facebook, and the influencer types that are just posting photos so they can show products. And there's sort of that industry where it's very metric driven and people are looking at how many subscribers you have, how many likes you have. And then you're more, you're doing both, but you're from an era where, yeah, you had photo projects and assignments and you were hired for specific things. uh that's a whole other thing. And then I feel like wedding photography is a whole nother area that's
Yeah.
different. And then you have sort of the artsy fartsy types that do galleries and things. There's so many different areas of photography. And
Yes. There's. I'd say there are basically, I guess, two types of professional photographers. I think if we make a really like a coarse categorization here, um, those who sell their work as art, whether it's online or Instagram or whatever, but they shoot for themselves, and then they are happy if someone else likes the pictures, and maybe they try to shoot pictures that other people like, but basically they decide what they want to shoot. And then there's the other type of professional photographers like me who shoot what the clients want, and the client pays for that.
right.
And those two are fundamentally different because most of the pictures I have shot during my lifetime are pictures that I probably never would have shot unless someone paid me to shoot them. And I'm not saying that I didn't have fun. I had extremely good fun and good time while making those pictures, and I met a lot of interesting people and so on. But still, most of those pictures were something that I would only shoot if someone paid me to do that. Like many corporate portraits, for example. Why would I shoot some people I don't know? I don't know them at all. But someone needed those pictures, and I was chosen to make those pictures. But it's so different from some other type of photography, professional photography, where you decide yourself what you want to. Let's say a landscape photographer, he can decide whatever he wants to shoot, and still can be a professional photographer. But it's just there's no client, so to speak, this in the same sense.
Right. Right. Like I said, there's, like you explained, there's just different businesses for photography. And you can look at it like, you can do photography as a business, or you can do photography as an amateur and just enjoy the hobby. But on the business side, they're so different. It's not like you say, I'm going to be a photographer you have to specialize. I think it's too hard to. You can't do it all. Maybe someone can, but anyway, uh, let's go on to this question here. The GRX3X has no viewer window. Do you miss that?
Like a viewfinder, I guess. Yes, I miss that, but I'm willing to accept the compromise because of this tiny size. But of
Right.
course, I wish there was a viewfinder, but I don't think they can fit one here. I wish they had an electronic viewfinder that would go onto the hot shoe, but for whatever reason, they decided not to do that.
I've seen those little plastic square things you can put on.
Yeah, you can put an optical viewfinder here, and I don't know, maybe I should get one. But I still like these cameras a lot.
Yeah, I prefer a viewfinder, but I wonder if it's a generational thing, right? Where, a lot of people in the last 10, 15 years, they all use their phone and they're used to just looking at
Yep.
the back of a screen.
Yes.
Whereas, you and I, we kind of, well, you more than me, but we kind of went with we used an optical viewfinder for a long time.
Yeah, because with these old cameras, that was the only thing.
Yeah.
There is no back screen.
Right. So, but the newer generation, they might be just fine with the GRX3 and without
Yeah.
having a viewfinder. And
Yes.
maybe no, they wouldn't use a viewfinder if it had one anyway, because they're so used to it.
It reminds me of something. Let me tell you a little story. Many years ago, a client of mine wanted me to. They also had their own camera at the PR department or whatever. Sometimes they needed to make some simple pictures for internal use, and they wanted me to kind of share some tips on how to use the camera better. And they had a Canon DSLR, and they didn't even know that there's a viewfinder. They were always using the back screen.
Huh.
Even if it was a DSLR, they didn't even know there was a viewfinder. But when I told them that there's this little window that you can peek through, and sometimes it's better than the back screen, because some of those early DSLRs, the first one to have a live view, the autofocus was kind of slow and clunky, and it was not very maybe a good user experience. But just give you an example that many people don't even know that some cameras have a viewfinder.
Yeah. Well, I can beat that. I went out with a friend of mine, didn't even know where the shutter button was. Okay, so because I've
that's
never
even
picked
better.
up a camera before. They've always used their phone, and they're like touching the screen, like, "Where's the shutter button?"
All right.
Anyway, I shouldn't tease her so much. She watches these streams sometimes. But anyhow, okay, Maddie. Any last questions for Maddie before we wrap up here? I think I got them all. If I missed any, just you have to retype it at this point.
Yeah, please do ask something.
Yeah, so I'll hit you with this one then. What's like the last thing you took a picture of and shared, maybe on Instagram or Facebook?
Last thing. Oh, I have to check it out. I don't remember. The last picture I shared on Instagram was this little bit abstract black and white picture that I shot on film.
Nice.
on the
F3?
On this Nikon F3 camera.
Awesome.
And there's going to be more film content also on my channel, just in case someone is interested.
It's funny how there's questions are coming in, but I just want to make an observation. It's funny how we're all thinking so much alike, because I wanted to talk about used cameras and stuff on the stream today. And you and I talked about this a few days ago before we set up the stream. And then the very next day, Jimmy Chang has a video about buying used cameras. And then I was thinking about talking about noise reduction software and comparing Topaz and DxO again, because there's been a lot of updates. This morning, Peter has a DxO Topaz video.
Yeah, I saw that.
And now you're saying you want to do more videos on film photography, and I'm like, so do I. But anyhow, that's awesome. Great minds think alike, right?
Yeah, film is a couple of more words about film. Film is an interesting topic. I mean, a few years ago, I said I'm never going to go back to film, but right now it feels really, really inspiring again, and I really want to shoot some more film and share it with you guys too. And I don't think film is, I mean, obviously it's different from digital, but I think just one form of making pictures, and in that sense, it's not that much different. And but anyway. More questions.
Yeah. This is a little bit more generic, but what inspires you to keep on shooting?
Yeah, I sometimes wonder that myself, but I guess there is just something when you manage to, you see the light, then you manage to hit the shutter at the exact right moment. It's just somehow very, very satisfying to see that come together in one frame, and the lighting, composition, and everything. And I guess it's just that to be able to somehow capture a specific moment in time when everything kind of falls in place in one frame. I guess that's one of those things that kind of inspires me. I don't know if I can explain it any better.
Right. No, I get it. You capturing the moment in a way that reflects everything about that day or that time when you took the picture, right? And putting those things together. You just like to create, basically. Create images. But finding inspiration, sometimes you look for it in other photographers, or
yes, definitely.
Some people, they like to listen to music. That's their inspiration to go out and make photos. I don't know. I haven't figured that out, but I've heard that.
Yeah, I can't relate to that, but I can certainly get inspired by looking at some other photographers' work. That's a very good way to get inspired. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts on the G95 compared to the GX9?
Well, the GX9 is, I think they both have pretty much the same features, some minor differences, but the G95 is like more traditional, or let's say SLR type of this type of camera in digital form, and the GX9 is more like a rangefinder look or type of camera. I just think it comes down to the ergonomics and the button layout, which one you like better. I think both cameras are pretty much as capable image makers.
Okay, so here's another one. Stefan says, in my opinion, the most important thing is photography is the idea, then the framing, then the light, and very last is the I can't read that one.
Gear.
Got it.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Of course, you can make pictures, great pictures on any type of camera, I guess you got to choose the camera that you like to use, and then you are likely to make better pictures because you enjoy your camera. But basically, it doesn't matter. But now that I'm on it, I'd like to say that I tend to make better pictures on these little Ricoh cameras than any other camera. Um, I think one of the main reasons is that I have them almost always with me, and they are so easy to pull out almost anywhere, um, and they don't draw any attention, even if I'm in, on a public transport, on a tram or on a bus or wherever. I can basically just pull out the camera and take a picture. I guess that's one reason. And I've been thinking about that a lot, why I think I make better pictures on these compared to some other cameras. I'm not sure. I think one reason is that I have them with me, and they are so easy to use in every situation. A little bit like a phone camera, but so much nicer to use than a phone camera. And of course, the image quality is much better.
Yeah. God, I hate using my cell phone for anything
Yep.
unless I have to. Like, I take pictures of business cards and things like that, but nothing else.
Yeah.
And this one is, well, I'll let you answer this. Is it better to print your pictures or use film and digitize them? Film is really expensive.
It's better to print your pictures. I guess you were talking about film photography here. I'd love to have a traditional darkroom where I could print my film pictures, but it's such a big deal to have one room for that specific thing, because back when I was professional using film, we had a really professional darkroom, so I got used to that really good stuff, and I'm not happy if I have to set up my darkroom in the bathroom or somewhere and then start printing. It's not going to happen. So I don't think I'll ever have a traditional darkroom anymore. And you can have really nice results if you scan or digitize your negatives and then print on an inkjet printer. That's a very good way to do it, and I don't think there is anything wrong with that. But of course, the whole printing process is very different if you do it in a traditional darkroom, and it would be so nice to have one. But unfortunately, it is such a big deal, and I don't think film is that expensive. It's
I'm sorry. Let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Roman clarified his question a little bit. He meant, do you print digital pictures or digitize film photos?
I do both. I print all the time. I have my printer is right here. You can't see it, but it's here right next to me. I print all the time, and I digitize my negatives because it's so hard to share film pictures in any other way.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to, sometimes you can just get your film developed and have the prints made for you, and you don't have to scan anything. The only time you really need to scan things, like Maddie was saying, is if you want to share online. You can only do it digitally, but also scanning film, it's the only way you're going to be able to archive film anymore, really. Is digitizing and bring it into some sort of data asset management like Lightroom. Digitizing film is the best way to archive it, I think, as well. But
you can of course save your negatives,
right?
But
but they can get old, right? They hold up pretty well. But
I have some negatives from early 80s, and they still look really, really good. nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
If it's developed and processed properly, it will keep really, really long time.
Right. And you have to use, when you get your negatives back, put them into some kind of archival material,
Sleeves
sleeves
and
and things that will
store
keep them.
and store them in dark.
Yeah. You don't want to have the negatives rubbing against each other, because I've
Mm-mm.
gotten film back like just bare in the envelope.
Yeah,
Um,
not good.
yeah. So there's a whole thing to that. But anyhow, the other question here is, since talking about film photography, do you have any favorite films?
You want to go first or do I?
Oh, well, I don't have a ton of experience right now. I like Tri-X for black and white, and color. I'm still experimenting. I'm gonna try some Fujifilm Superior next week. I wasn't crazy about the portrait. It's very pastel-y.
Hmm.
So right now I really like Tri-X.
Okay, my in the past, Tri-X was my favorite film a long time ago, and I don't have any favorite color negative film. Back when I was doing professional jobs on film, we used always a color positive film, and back then my favorite films were Fuji, Velvia, Astia, and some Ektachromes that I don't remember specifically anymore. But today, Tri-X is very expensive over here, at least. So I've been using the Formapan 100 and 400, and I like them. They are not quite as good as, especially the 400 is. It's not Tri-X, but I think that it's a very good value for money. And now I have loaded some on this camera. I've loaded some. What is it called? It's the Ilford 3200 ISO film. I don't remember the specific. It's I don't know, but it's
Yeah,
the.
I can't remember. Do you underexpose that or push and pull in
I
development?
rated at 3200. This is my first roll now, and I'm gonna see if I like it or not. I'm looking for a little bit of grain and high contrast and that kind of stuff, and I hope it's gonna be like that, because that film is not super expensive, and if it's anything like the Kodak, I think it's called TMZ or something,
Hmm.
3200. If it's anything like that, then I'm gonna like this Ilford film.
Okay. Um, and I'm just going to respond to Richard's one real quick, about maybe getting a 4x5 camera. I'm very fortunate. I have a local camera store where I can get anything I need in terms of like film and stuff. But online, just the usual suspects, keh.com is the only place. And if you have any camera stores, you can go to districtcamera.com. That's my local store. They may have some used equipment, and they sell, they sell quality stuff. Usedphotopro.com is also very, very reliable. They're a branch of robertscamera.com. So those are the three: keh.com, usedphotopro.com, and districtcamera.com. So, but yeah. Anyway, okay. Um,
Anything
I
else?
don't see any other questions. Lots of compliments there for you, though, Maddie, which is
I
good.
can see some of those. I'm sorry I have missed most of the comments because I'm concentrating too hard on what I'm trying to say here. But thanks everyone for
Yeah.
your compliments and comments. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate them.
Yeah, yeah, Maddie's awesome. I definitely, if you haven't checked his channel out by now, definitely go there and check it out. What you see here is what you get on his channel. I mean, he doesn't have a different personality in his videos than he is in real life, like he is here, you know.
No, I can't
Um,
do that. I simply can't be anyone else. I've sometimes talked about this with my friend Peter, and
mhm,
also with Robin, who's also a good friend of mine. And we can't be anything else than we are.
yeah.
And that's you either like me or you don't like me.
And there's one more quick question, I guess, from Enrique. He didn't type it yet, but he typed that he has a question.
All right, where is it?
Uh, and then also Plato had one.
Oh, then there's a question. When do you invite Rob Drake to Europe, to Finland? Well, I can invite you right now, please.
One day. I need a passport first.
Yeah, I'd
Um,
also like to come to visit you and
oh yeah,
make
I
a
got an
photo
extra
walk.
room anytime. You don't have to get a hotel or nothing. You
All
you
right,
need to
good.
get a bulletproof vest, but uh, but okay, I think that's all the questions there. So, Maddie, thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I know the viewers appreciate it. So sorry we missed you last week, but this was I think this was a little better format for you anyway, because you are a little bit different than some of the other guests I had with respect to, you're from Panasonic, being the former ambassador there, and also expanding into all these different systems. You're pretty diverse that way.
Let me show you one last thing.
Oh, sure.
Look what I bought.
Oh, yeah. Nice. The
I
XT30.
yeah I bought this camera just recently. I very quickly explain what happened. I had a lens that I didn't need, so I traded it for this, and that's the main reason. I wanted to get rid of that lens, and now I have also a Fuji camera, so some Fuji content coming up someday.
Yeah. Well, I took my Fuji out yesterday for the first time in 2 years for an actual photo walk. I didn't vlog it or anything, but I'll post some images on Instagram, and we'll look forward to your images from your XT30. Um, I was pleasantly surprised. I had a good experience with it yesterday. Unlike 2 years ago when I first bought it, my experience with it was very poor, and that's why it sat in the dry cabinet for 2 years. Um, but I had a
I
good
saw
experience yesterday.
I so much envy you. You have a black version. I have this silver that looks
Yeah,
like a toy camera.
yeah, mine is black. Oh. I put this 35 millimeter CCTV lens on it.
Oh, please
So,
put it away. It looks too good. The black. Oh,
but yeah, I had a good experience yesterday with it. So, you can look for more Fuji content from both of us, I guess. But anyhow, you guys, Maddie, you have a good weekend. What's left of it.
you
I
too.
will have you on again, hopefully before summer, if that's okay.
Yeah,
And
I'm always ready for this, and I'm so happy that
awesome.
you had me.
Now that your camera's working,
Yeah.
I know it can have you. So, so I'll let you go. And everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here with us, and the questions we had for Maddie. I hope you guys have a good weekend, and thanks for watching. And hopefully, we'll see all of you again soon.
Thank you so much, everyone.